croesawu have yma heddiw. I'm delighted to welcome everyone here today to the Wales Golf Roadshows, which is sponsored by our partners Citation. I'm Hannah, I'm Chief Executive of Wales Golf. If you haven't met me, please come up to me throughout the day. I'll be here. It'd be lovely to chat to each one of you. We've had a bit of a disaster this morning. I hear a few of you have had a disaster as well. And we don't have access to power at the moment. It's tripped here, and we've got a backup here, and the socket's tripped there. So we're going to work in the background to get through it. So we're going to do it without slides to start off with. We did have a backup plan, but even that's not working, so let's go for it.
Not backup.
Oh no, is it backup?
Keep going.
Oh, we're nearly there. So I'm going to do mine without slides anyway. But it's lovely to have everyone in the same room. We've really missed the interaction with our clubs through COVID. It's really, really nice to have that, and we're excited about the content ahead. It was brilliant yesterday. We were in West Wales. Similar amount of people, and the interaction within the room was fantastic. So prior to handing over to Zoe, Zoe's going to MC the day today. She was also standing because Sandy is poorly in bed. So we've had a few different things, but you really experienced it now, Zoe. And you did a fantastic job yesterday. Well done. I just wanted to remind you about the Wales Golf Strategy launched earlier this year. The strategy development process took about 18 months. It's actually used as good practice within the sports sector. I presented on it a few times to help other sports within Wales within the strategy development process. And we consulted extensively during that process, and that included, and part of that included 10 focus groups, which obviously were clubs. And we nearly had over 2,000 responses to our players' survey. And that was something different from this strategy to the previous strategy, because we've now got contact with our players. And that really gave us great insight into what matters most to the people involved in the game within Wales. So we know from that consultation, and because we work within clubs as well, that golf brings people together and communities together. It's loved and enjoyed by people of all ages and all backgrounds, and it's a game that's recognised for its health and well-being benefits, which you would have seen enriches and transforms people's lives for the better. So with that in mind, our vision is to make golf everyone's game, for fun, for sport and for life. We did have a little video, but we are behind time today, but that's on our website, and it's available for you as clubs if you want to use it with your members as well. That's available in Welsh and English. And on the table as well, you've got handouts available in Welsh and English, short versions of the strategy and long versions of the strategy as well. So these roadshows form part of the player and club support pillar of the strategy. The three sections within the roadshows emerged from the club survey, which you should have some if there's some left on the tables. They're the orange booklets. I don't think we have actually looking out there, but that's also available on our website. And the important themes that emerged from the consultation process. So we'll be looking at governance, and a hot topic within governance at the moment. Rules and handicapping, because there are some changes coming. You'll all be pleased to know that. And also sustainability. So I'd like to introduce you, and I think everybody knows Zoe in the room, Director of Development, who's going to MC the day today and also bring you back on time.
That's going to be a challenge. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be here. Thank you all for joining us. I know the traffic was a bit rubbish this morning, so I appreciate your efforts. Okay, so I will try and bring us on track with timings. We did pretty well yesterday to do that. So roughly speaking, I think we'll tweak it a little bit. So we were supposed to have a break at 11:15, but what we might do is if you need teas and coffees, we'll take a slight pause. We're going to rearrange the governance section first. So we'll start off with our partners Citation and Howdens, and then have a quick break, and then we'll do our governance section prior to lunch this morning. So I've got a few housekeeping bits which I'll whiz through, which is somewhere here. So there are no fire alarms or fire drills scheduled today, but if there are, please leave at the exits and then head towards the car park. Toilets are out the doors and on your right. Refreshments will be served all day. And if you keep your mobile phones on silent and any important calls, please take them outside. We'll be very grateful. We will be, as you can see, James is here. We'll be taking some photographs and some film as well so that we can showcase this great day to the people that can't attend. So if you've got any problems with photography, please let us know and we can make every best effort so that you can get photos. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to move things along. So who am I introducing first? Because we're moving it around. Here we go. So for the first session, I'd like to introduce our sponsors of the Roadshow, an existing partner Citation, who provide a vital free upgraded service to clubs on health and safety and human resources. They can certainly help free up your valuable time so that you can focus on what matters most. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Flora to the floor. If you'd like to come and join us. Thank you, Flora. Just pull it back in one. Do you want me to find you a... Shall I pull this?
It's fine across. You can. If that comes on, see it go on the floor. Thanks. Okay, so we may have slides, we may not. Thank you, first of all, for inviting us to join you all this morning, which is great. And Ian and I are going to be around all day. We've also got some goodie bags, so please make sure that you pick those up before you leave. So I was going to tell you, first of all, show you some bits about Citation, but basically we do employment law, health and safety and HR, and it's about helping you get it right is the key thing. Avoid getting into scenarios where and you're dealing with human beings, there's always going to be challenges, unfortunately it's just the way it is, but to try and avoid getting into those challenges, also making sure that you're compliant, because you need to be legally compliant from a employment law point of view and a health and safety point of view also. And it's given as well, it's having the right structure that gives you the control and the structure that you need in the club is the key thing. So obviously the health and safety point of view, there's a lot, I'm just going to start these off. There's a lot under health and safety, and there's I don't know if MD's here had a look at the how-to hub yet or was on the session that we did. You can have a look at the how-to hub and it gives you guidance there on what you need to be doing. The other thing that I really wanted to tell you about today was just some of the changes that are coming up. Firstly, I would say is about making sure you've got the basics right. It's important to have those things in place to be compliant as a club. Things like contracts, handbooks, policies, processes, they're all there to help you get it right and provide those kind of guidance and rules to people that you employ, and making sure that again everybody's on the same playing field is the key thing. You need to have robust foundations in place to make sure you're compliant. Avoid tribunals, because obviously that's the last thing you want to get into, and it's unfortunately not that difficult, and we've seen a huge rise in tribunals. And the challenge with tribunals are, if you end up in a tribunal with somebody, it's set up to protect the employee or the applicant, it's not set up to protect you, the employer or the club. So it's making sure that you've got the right things in place and that you have evidence to prove what you did as a club as well. Whether you're, there's been a scenario with, a challenge
whatever's going on, stealing or people not getting along, not complying, whatever it might be. There is a process you need to follow as an employer and as a club, making sure and evidence that you followed that, training people as well. How well have you trained people? You need to be able to evidence that. So it's about the documentation and about the audit trail basically as your protection. If you don't have that, then it's very difficult. It's like everything. Black and white evidence is what stands up. And obviously when we're talking about health and safety, it's you could be in the dock, unfortunately, because it is criminal prosecution. So you need to have the right evidence in place is the key thing. Training people's key, and when we're talking about health and safety, training's non-negotiable. It's legal requirement to train people properly. So again, making sure that you've got evidence to show that you've done that is the important thing. And making sure that your employees are engaged and on board with what the rules and procedures are, because again, people have worked maybe in a club in the past or whatever, but it's different in every club. You're all running a different club and business, so it's making sure that they are clear about the rules and procedures in your individual clubs is the absolute key thing. So again, that's where your training and documentation again comes into it. I am like a broken record, but it's to protect you at the end of the day. That's the reason. There's a lot of changes going on this year and next year and even into 2025, and I'm just going to give you a wee bit of a kind of whistle-stop tour of those. So the first one is the Employment Act. Part of the Employment Act, it's about allocation of tips. Now, employers are legally required to pass on tips to workers. That is a legal requirement. They've introduced a code of practice, and that gives guidance about how your tips should be distributed. So if you're not familiar with that, then it became law on the 2nd of May. It's not enforced yet, but it's coming, so I would certainly be thinking about it. And there will be a draft code for consultation first before that comes in, but it's certainly something that's on the way. You're required to keep more detailed records on the collection and the distribution of tips and service charges for a minimum of 3 years now, so they can come back at any point and ask you to evidence how you distributed it and what you did. So please keep that. I mean, digitally or whatever is absolutely fine, but make sure you've got that information. And workers now will have the right to request information about employers' tipping records, and you've got 4 weeks to provide that. So again, make sure that you've got it. I can tell by your face you're not loving that thought. It's like
we'll just stop tipping, that's all.
Yeah, just no tips.
It'll be easier.
It's compensation of up to £5,000 could be awarded to every affected worker as well if you're not doing that. So yeah, it's definitely one to be aware of and have a think about. Again, it's about having, putting a procedure in, having a policy, making sure everybody's clear about it is the key thing, and keeping the documentation. So that's the important part. Redundancy is another one that hopefully you don't have to think too much about, but I think everybody has to be pretty clear about it just now. And it's changing a little bit in terms of the rights and people who have maternity leave and things. So, and I think the problem with redundancy is, thankfully people don't have to do it all the time, but when you do go into it, it's quite complicated and it causes a bit of confusion. If you're needing to go down that route at all, I would always recommend you take advice, because there's a process to follow. If you don't follow it, there's going to be a problem. And an example of this is, you're closing, say, an area of your business. There's one suitable job in another team. It affects 4 employees. One's in long-term sick and one's in maternity leave. And the question is, what do you do about that? Do you make everyone aware of it and let them know when they can apply along with the external candidates? Or do you offer it to employee maternity leave? Or do you select between all 4 candidates? Well, the answer to that is it needs to go to the employee maternity leave. So it's again just being aware of where other legislation comes in. So you're in a redundancy situation, there's other legislation then that comes into that, and that's where it can get a little bit complicated, shall we say. So again, it's just more to be thinking about that and just having an awareness of it and taking guidance as and when you need to as well. And this is part of the Protection from Redundancy Act, which is pregnancy and family leave. That also extends the current protections from the point the employer knows about pregnancy up to 18 months after the birth of a child as well. So that came into force on the 25th of July this year. But it's, the implementation date won't be till next year, but again, it's one that's coming. Flexible working, it's a big thing now, and everybody's doing levels of flexible working and all the rest of it. There's been some changes in that as well. It has received the Employment Relations Flexible Working Act, has received royal assent, but we are still waiting to hear when the regulations will actually have a start date. Once that start date has passed, as an employer, you'll have to consult with the employees as a means of exploring the available options before rejecting a flexible working request. So, and the key thing about this is media get a hold of bits and pieces, and then people will be like, oh, I'm entitled to that and I'm entitled to that, and you might get a flurry of requests and things as well. So again, it's just being mindful, okay, what do I do here? Because remember as well, for anything you say, for example, you accept somebody's request, but that then has an impact on everybody else as well, and it is going to kind of open a can of worms. So it's just, again, being mindful of that and being kind of ready for it. Employees will be able to make 2 flexible working requests in any 12-month period, which previous or currently is limited to 1 request, and you will have to respond within 2 months, so within 8 weeks. At the moment it's 3 months. And employees will no longer need to set out how the effects of their flexible working request will be dealt with by you. They have to do that at the moment. There's not going to be any changes to the 8 grounds for refusal. So if you are refusing somebody a flexible working request, there are 8 grounds in which you can do that. Please make sure your reason behind not giving them flexible working comes within those 8 grounds. It's basically a business justifiable reason. It's not because you don't think they've earned it, they don't deserve it, you don't trust them, whatever it might be thinking. Make sure anything you request or refuse is within those 8 grounds for refusal. Again, it's to keep you right, and if anybody challenges it, then you make sure you've got that. And also they're going to looking, this is not a guarantee, but they are also looking at making a right to request flexible working a day 1 right. So somebody you've just employed can come in on day 1 and potentially then say, I'm going to make a flexible working request. That is not guaranteed yet, but it looks like that's the way it's going to go. Because at the moment they need to there's a 26-week qualifying period, but it's looking like they're going to take that out. So again, just to be mindful of it. And again, if somebody does that, go through the right channels and do it in the appropriate way. Workers' Bill, that was passed in September, and it'll be implemented. Will not be implemented for about a year, I would think. I think we'll be talking about autumn 2024. That is a statutory right for workers to request a more predictable working pattern. Now, notice that the language here is all about workers and not just employees, because now we talk about employees, workers and self-employed, whereas previously it was just employees and self-employed. We now have this worker status in employment law. It's not recognised by HMRC, it's not anything to do with tax, it's purely employment law. So anybody that's casual staff, short-term, fixed-term contract, contractors that kind of, you maybe have 0 hours contract people and things like that, they will come into this worker category. So they now have rights that they've not had previously. So that was because of the Good Work Plan, which came out in April of 2020. So again, if you're not familiar with that, then please do familiarise yourself with it, because it has an impact. You can say no to all these things. The key thing is you do it properly. So those 8 grounds that I said about refusal, again, just make sure. And it's things like, one of the is burden of additional cost, detrimental effect on the ability to meet customer demand, detrimental impact of the recruitment of staff, detrimental impact on other aspects of the business, insufficiency of work during the periods the worker proposes to work, planned structural changes. So it's got to fit within that though. So anything you are refusing along that line, make sure that you're compliant and you're coming within that is the key thing. The other one I want to touch on that I think probably affects everybody is managing absence. Absence is always a challenge, and the key thing is just to manage it. Whether it's planned, whether it's unplanned, whether it's short-term, long-term absence, is just manage it properly, because it can very easily get out of hand, and before you know it, you've got a very negative culture going on that says it's fine just to not come to work, and it can change quite quickly. So return to work interviews, return to work meetings, does everybody do them? Be honest. After every instance of absence? Tend to leave it for long term? Yeah. You should be doing it after every instance of absence. From a health and safety point of view, you need to be confident that people that are in your business are fit to be there. Just because somebody's turned up for work doesn't mean to say they're fit to be there. And if they then have an accident, who are they going to come looking for? They're going to come looking for you, because you have health and safety and welfare responsibility for everybody that's in your club, on the grounds, wherever else. So please make sure everybody is fit to be there. That's your responsibility, and it can go. And you also, if you look at the small print, your insurance, then you probably wouldn't be covered as well, so you don't want to be in that scenario. Also, it's just finding out that somebody might now be taking medication, doing something that they shouldn't be operating machinery, or whatever else it might be. So you need to have that conversation. Is there anything we need to know about? And it might just be that somebody's now diabetic, epileptic, carry an EpiPen, but that's information you need to know. People don't tend to come in and shout it from rooftops, but you may need to know that kind of information. So, and it only needs to be minutes. It's just, is there anything we need to know about? Are you taking any medication? Is there any long-term impact? Any amendments we need to make in the role for you? Yes, no, whatever. They sign it, you sign it. Yeah.
You say like a return to work process. What period are we talking about them being off to justify that? So if someone,
1 day.
Just 1 day is sufficient?
Yeah, because the problem is as well, if you're saying it's only the long-term people, potentially you're getting yourself into a discrimination situation, and that's where it can. So, and that's what I mean, when it's a 1 day as well, sometimes when it's non-genuine absence is what I would talk about. Quite often when people think, oh, actually I need to sit and look somebody in the eye and lie to them, I'll just go to work. And actually it can massively reduce. I'm assuming you don't have a big issue with that, but if there ever is, it can work. But yeah, no, for anybody, whether they've been off 1 day, 2 days, 3 months, whatever. And if they've only been off for a couple of days, it literally, can be a few minutes conversation. It doesn't need to be a long-winded thing. It might be slightly longer. The Glasgow bin lorry scenario, which happened up our neck of the woods, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, highlighted the importance of it and the documentation, because as an employer, you've got the responsibility. They had a discussion with this gentleman, unfortunately wasn't honest and didn't tell me he was taking medication, and he now had a medical condition, which resulted in him, it's a horrific tragedy. But when it came to the actual inquest, and so Glasgow City Council had been held wholly responsible for it until they could produce that documentation to show they'd taken their responsibility, and showed that they'd asked the question and they'd done the right process. So it's things like that that can make a big difference. Oh, right, sorry. Okay, I've moved on to the next one now. Just to talk briefly about just other things that should be on your agenda. How am I? Can you move it forward?
Yeah, they will click it.
Ah. Oh, there we go. Right. So, I'm not going to go through these, but these are things that you just need to have on your business agenda and be thinking about. Menopause is a huge thing at the moment. If you don't have a menopause policy, it's certainly something that you should be considering and looking at, because there's lots going on with it, and as I'm sure you've seen, there's lots of media coverage and all the rest of it. Stress risk assessments, again, a big thing at the moment, and goes hand in hand with wellbeing and engagement. I don't know if anybody here's ever done a stress risk assessment with any of your team, but again, it's not just when people are struggling, it's about being proactive about it and making sure that you are thinking about people's well-being and engaging them as well as the absolute key thing. Changes to pregnancy legislation, which we've talked a wee bit about. Diversity and inclusion, obviously, again, something that, you know, looking at your policies, thinking about, okay, what have we got in here? Have you got a diversity policy? What have you done about it? Have you thought about it? All the rest of it, because all these things are most definitely going to come up. Changes to right to work checks. Basically, it's your responsibility as an employer to prevent illegal working. So when you're employing somebody, you need to make sure you're going through the right checks, because if not, there's civil and criminal penalties for you as an employer. And obviously sustainability is a huge thing at the moment, and everybody needs to be thinking about. So I can just want to leave those ones with you, we can talk about. The other one I just want to touch on, health and safety point of view, is the fire stuff. There's obviously been changes to fire safety and the fire safety order, and it impacts the role and responsibilities of the responsible person. So that was from the 1st of October in England and Wales. Now requires the responsible person within all non-domestic premises, like a workplace and a building containing 2 or more sets of domestic premises. So basically it covers everybody. The changes are that the responsible person is about the documentation, recording all the fire risk assessments in full. Previously only part of that, the fire risk assessment was recorded, so it's changed. Basically what I would be saying here is look at your fire risk assessment, review it now, and make sure whoever's doing that is an expert in what they do. Because it really, the responsibility is very much on you, and if it's not right with your fire risk stuff, obviously it's really serious, so please do. I don't know when you last reviewed your fire risk assessment, but I'd recommend that now is probably a pretty good time to do that, obviously with the changes. Okay, has anybody got any questions? I know it's a whistle-stop tour, but it's just to try and give you some things that you need to be thinking about, things that are important, and it's changing so much, and there's so much going on right now, so we're just trying to kind of get it out there. Anybody got any questions specifically? We're here as well if anybody has questions or anything, more than happy to take them.
Do you have a handout of everything that was on?
We don't, but we can get something to you. We've got goodie bags, and in there it's covered some of the health and safety and the HR stuff as well. Because you obviously have access as well to the how-to hub, which gives you guidance and can really, give you the guidance that you need to make sure that you're getting it right is the key. Because I know it's a huge task. It absolutely is. So it's a challenge to keep up to, and it's all these new changes that are coming in as well. I think in the next kind of 12 months to 18 months, we're going to see a lot. So yeah, please do. That's what we do. As I say, we've got goodie bags. It tells you a bit more in there as well, but it's there and available to you if you need it. But do have a look if you've not already. Andy had a look in the how-to hub. Andy been on it yet? Yeah. And there's lots of information and guidance and everything there, so please do have a look at it, and it will talk you through what you need. Okay, but we're here. Come and get your goodie bag at some point and ask us any question you want. Thank you.